Hello dear friends. For some of you the term family applies, so hello to you too. In the previous video we looked at vitamins, in this video we're gonna look at minerals. That's it. Now, the difference between the electrolytes and the rest of the minerals is that the electrolytes are sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium, and chloride, but it's not as important. So let's start with sodium. It regulates the flow of water across cell membranes, and it's primarily found outside of cells. It's needed for protein and carbohydrate transport, and it lets nutrients in and out of cells together with potassium. Everyone needs a different amount. The thing is, in the health community, there's a debate on whether you should salt your food or not. Let me give you this trick. If you crave salt, then you probably need salt. If you don't crave salt, then you probably don't need salt. If you crave salt, then you have low sodium stores in your body. That's just how it works. Your body is pretty intelligent when it comes to that stuff. So that's my tip. Now, potassium. It determines the amount of water inside your cells, and it's primarily found inside your cells. It's needed to convert glucose into glycogen, and glycogen is basically stored carbs, so the carbs you store in your muscles and your liver. And sodium and potassium mean nothing without each other, so the way it works is, since sodium is found outside your cells and potassium is found inside your cells, they carry different charges, and when sodium goes into the cell, potassium goes out of the cell, and then since they have an electric charge, a nerve signal is emitted, so to speak, and that's basically how muscle contractions work. So they work together, they're antagonists. Now then, for most people, since processed food contains a bunch of sodium, your ratio of sodium to potassium might be very bad. For some of you, of course. Many of you are healthy. In that regard, I would suggest lowering sodium and increasing potassium. Now, an interesting thing is we evolved eating meat, and the potassium to sodium ratio in meat is 4.5 to 1, so 4.5 times more potassium than sodium. Now, this ratio might be something to look into. It might not be the ratio you need, but just think about it. Now, calcium, it's needed for cell signaling and nerve function. That's a very complicated process I might make a video about in the future. I'll have to do a bit more research, but that's a function. And it's of course needed when it comes to forming bones and teeth, as you already knew. Magnesium, it's needed for 300 plus enzymes, and enzymes are proteins that catalyze chemical reactions, so they make chemical reactions happen. ATP must bind to magnesium in order for it to work, and ATP is the energy molecule, and that's something I find really interesting, that magnesium is needed for ATP to work. It was not taught in biology, I can tell you that. It synthesizes a long list of important molecules, so too long to list. As I said, 300 different enzymes. It's needed for D3 to work. Remember, magnesium, D3 and K2 work together. It's needed for muscle contractions and nerve function, hence why magnesium deficiencies lead to muscle cramps. It's needed when it comes to regulating blood pressure and heartbeat, because the heart is a muscle and blood pressure is regulated through muscles in your arteries and veins. It protects the brain through blocking NMDA receptors from being overstimulated. So you have NMDA receptors, and if they're overstimulated, they get hurt, and magnesium protects them from that. Now we go over to the normal minerals, you could say. Now, iron. You want heme iron because we evolved eating heme iron, and the bioavailability, so how much you absorb of a certain nutrient, is very low in supplements and plant forms of iron. So you want heme iron, which is found in primarily meat. Now, it's needed for the synthesis of heme groups that form hemoglobin, and the hemoglobin is found in red blood cells and is needed to transport oxygen to tissues. It's the same with myoglobin, which stores oxygen in your muscles. Now listen closely. You know that, or you might know that heme iron is linked to cancer, right? But the thing is this. Heme iron is needed to synthesize two very important antioxidants called catalase and peroxidase. Now, if you for some reason can't transport or use iron, you won't be able to synthesize these two antioxidants, and your inflammation will be very high and your risk of cancer will go up. And if you can't use iron, you'll overload yourself with iron, and that causes an extreme amount of oxidative stress, so inflammation, which eventually increases your risk of cancer and gives you cancer. So that is why meat is linked with cancer. Now, it's not meat, it is a problem with copper, and we'll get to that because copper is the next mineral on our list. Now, copper is needed for iron transportation. So if you're copper deficient, you won't be able to use iron, and you'll just store up a bunch of iron in your body, and that's called iron overload, you could say. So that's why meat is linked to cancer. It's not because of meat, it's because of a copper deficiency. And it has two mechanisms which it acts through, which I just explained. Now, copper acts as an electron donor, acceptor in many mitochondrial processes, and the mitochondria is basically just, it uses electrons. That's what it does. It's just electrons, basically, if you look into it. It's needed for the synthesis of melanin, so melanin is what makes you darker. It's needed in the end stage of collagen synthesis. Now then, zinc. Zinc is needed to transport retinol, vitamin A, and it works with retinol. So the thing is, zinc is usually shown to help with acne. Now, I don't believe it's because of zinc itself. I believe it is because it transports or makes you use vitamin A better, and vitamin A is basically the master vitamin when it comes to healing skin disease. Now then, it's also needed for 300 plus enzymes, just like magnesium, an extreme amount of functions. That's why you can find the benefits. Well, when you read about the benefits of zinc, you'll find things all over the body. And it's the opposite of copper. So minerals have antagonists. The antagonist of zinc is copper. So the more copper you eat, the less zinc you're going to have. If you supplement a bunch of zinc, you're going to be copper deficient. So you want to balance it out. Now, manganese. It's needed to synthesize a superoxide dismutase, a very important antioxidant. It's needed to synthesize many enzymes, just like magnesium and zinc, and just like all minerals, to be honest. It's involved in the metabolism of glucose and protein digestion. It's involved in the synthesis of cholesterol, some fatty acids, RNA, and DNA. Phosphorus. It's a DNA and RNA building block, extremely important for all life on Earth. It works with calcium to form bones, and it's needed to create phospholipids, which constitute the cell membrane. So it's basically, the cell membrane is basically built out of phospholipids and some other stuff. Selenium. It's involved in the production of glutathione, and I'll probably make a video about glutathione so you don't buy detox teas. Needed to synthesize thyrodoxin reductase, which reduces oxidized thyrodoxin so it can do its job again. Thyrodoxin is a very important antioxidant. Get a bunch of this to reduce your risk of cancer, basically. Selenium has been shown to reduce cancer risk by a lot, so don't neglect selenium, it's very important. Sulfur. You indirectly get sulfur from eating protein through the amino acids methionine and cysteine. It's needed to produce glutathione, it's needed for collagen, keratin, and insulin production. Hence why eating animal products gives you healthy hair and skin, just like me. And it's also needed for some amino acid production. Now, chloride. Chloride is the main component of gastric acid / juice, and when you eat salt or sodium, you're primarily getting it through sodium chloride, which of course contains sodium and chloride, so you're getting chloride. So you don't have to worry about chloride, it's not something to think about. Iodine. Now, it's needed to synthesize the thyroid hormones T4, thyroxine, and T3, triiodothyronine. And the thyroid hormones are essential for the development and differentiation of all cells. They regulate the basal metabolic rate, they promote bone growth together with growth hormone, They're needed for macronutrient metabolism, and they're needed for heat generation in humans. So if you're a person that is very cold, I know some of you are, you're probably iodine deficient. Now, fluoride. Fluoride is the only mineral, or there are many minerals you don't need, of course, but fluoride is something you don't want. It hurts every cell in your body. It creates plaque in your brain, and it disrupts thyroid function. So, I mean, let us tell this thing. A historical figure with a mustache. He put he put a bunch of people in camps. I won't say. I'm avoiding certain keywords because of the YouTube algorithm. And he basically put fluoride in their water. You probably know who I'm referring to, but he put fluoride in their water so they would become dumb. And fluoride has been shown to reduce cognitive function by a lot. So now you know that toothpaste. It's probably something you should throw. Now then, that was it for minerals. In the next video, we'll be talking about fatty acids and amino acids, some very special ones. Over and out for now.